King Charles just pulled off a move so bold, it left the entire world questioning everything we knew about the British royal family. He didn't just reshape his destiny, he shook the monarchy to its core. Millions of followers, loyal to the royal family for decades, suddenly found themselves divided. What happened? The truth is, Charles made a game-changing decision that no one saw coming. He removed Camilla from the spotlight and repositioned himself at the center of the monarchy. The impact? Far more explosive than you might think. The British monarchy, with its centuries-old traditions, is usually the one making headlines for its stability. But over the past few years, things have taken a turn. After Queen Elizabeth II's passing, her son Charles ascended to the throne. He wasn't the young, fresh-faced prince the world had once adored. No, Charles was a 73-year-old monarch stepping into shoes that were far too big, with expectations weighing down on him. And Camilla, his longtime partner, seemed like the obvious consort. But here's the twist. Not long after becoming king, Charles made a series of subtle but significant moves that would ultimately push Camilla into the shadows and reaffirm his own central role in the monarchy. This wasn't a random shift. It was a carefully calculated play for power and public perception. And it's been nothing short of revolutionary. Camilla's rise to queen consort was a historic moment. After all, she had once been the subject of intense media scrutiny for her relationship with Charles, especially when Diana was still in the picture. For years, she was vilified, criticized, and painted as the other woman who destroyed the perfect royal fairy tale. But Charles made the decision to stand by her, and over time, the public warmed to Camilla. The queen consort role, however, was never about putting Camilla on the same pedestal as the queen herself. It was about stabilizing the monarchy by having a steady, supportive figure by Charles's side. However, shortly after ascending the throne, Charles seemed to make a tactical decision to reduce Camilla's visibility. In official portraits, Camilla was nowhere near as prominent as the newly crowned monarch. Media appearances, interviews, and public statements from the royal family began to reflect a noticeable shift. Charles was the face of the monarchy in a way that felt almost instantly more personal and more powerful than before. The decision wasn't without its risks. Camilla's image had evolved from the woman everyone hated to the woman everyone respected. But Charles recognized that in order to truly solidify his reign, he needed to pull back and remind the public who was at the helm. Camilla, for all. Her newfound popularity was still not the figurehead many people envisioned as the central queen. Charles, on the other hand, had a long-standing relationship with the British public, a sense of familiarity that was crucial. The key to Charles's move wasn't just about removing Camilla from the spotlight. It was about positioning himself as the lone architect of the monarchy's future. By carefully reshaping public opinion and redirecting focus back to him, he wasn't just stepping into a ceremonial role. He was making it clear that the monarchy was no longer about keeping up appearances or upholding tradition for tradition's sake. It was about survival in the modern world. Here's where things get really interesting. Charles began to capitalize on something that was both a strength and a weakness of the royal family: its age. The monarchy, for all its glitz and glamour, was also a symbol of something many people felt was out of touch. Charles, having waited decades for this moment, knew his time was limited. He could not afford to sit back and let the royal family fade into irrelevance. So Charles took the monarchy into his own hands, first by distancing himself from any association with past scandals. He understood that in the age of social media, history could be rewritten in an instant, and public sentiment was volatile. Any misstep could cost him millions of followers, and worse, the monarchy itself could be questioned in ways it hadn't been for generations. But here's the ultimate irony. In stepping forward and establishing his presence, Charles unintentionally began a divide. While millions rallied behind him, there was a vocal minority who felt betrayed by the shift. Camilla, once seen as an outsider, was now being pushed into the background. But even worse, some royal fans, long loyal to the crown, began to see Charles's actions as a power grab. Suddenly, the monarchy became less about the legacy of the crown and more about Charles as a person. It became clear he wasn't just the king, he was the king of change. The monarchy could no longer rely on a static image. It had to be dynamic, modern, and above all, Charles-centric. The old order was gone. Interestingly enough, while this tactic worked in gaining Charles millions of new followers, it also drove a wedge between the royal family and its older, more traditional supporters. The move to eclipse Camilla, while seemingly a strategic move, had deep psychological undertones. It wasn't just about image, it was about control. Charles knew that in the Game of Thrones, control was the most powerful tool of all. Now, many of you might be asking, why did Camilla go along with this? Was she complicit? Or was this part of an unspoken understanding between her and Charles? Well, it's clear that Camilla knew the stakes. After all, this wasn't just about love. It was about the monarchy's survival. She may have understood that her presence in the public eye was no longer necessary for the future Charles envisioned. Over time, however, it became clear that this power play had its consequences. While Charles gained the loyalty of millions of followers, the royal family's internal dynamics were more strained than ever. And now questions have begun to swirl. Is Charles truly in control? Or has he isolated the very people who helped build the monarchy? Is the monarchy in danger of splintering under the weight of his decisions? But here's the kicker. What if Camilla's eventual exit from the public eye wasn't just a personal decision? What if it was part of a larger, long-term strategy to reshape the monarchy entirely? Camilla may have seen herself not as a victim of Charles's rise, but as a key player in an even bigger game. What would that mean for the future of the royal family? And that brings us to a critical question, one that no one seems to have an answer for yet. How much power is too much power for a monarch? The more Charles separates himself from Camilla, the more the world watches, waiting for the next move, and questioning whether this shift will secure the monarchy's future or tear it apart. What happens next could very well reshape the entire British royal family for generations to come. As we look toward the future of the monarchy, one thing is certain: the battle for control is far from over. With millions of followers now invested in Charles's reign, the stakes have never been higher. But is this a new dawn for the royal family? Or is Charles walking a tightrope, risking everything for the sake of power? Only time will tell. But one thing's for sure: the world is watching.